of English literature from the point of view of the West and how, in fact, they look at this great novel. Avarana is a unique historical novel. In recent times, the term novel is applied to a great variety of writings that have in common evidently the attribute of being extended works of fiction written in prose. Many novels don't have a story to tell according to the old characteristics of plot, characters, dialogue, and philosophy of life. Here are a few cursory remarks on Dr. Bhyrappa's Avarana from the point of view of a student of English and English literature. To mention briefly the contemporary theoretical context, the terms neo-historicism and reader response are particularly relevant. Neo-historicism has been described as a reciprocal concern with the historicity of texts and textuality of history. This historical mode is grounded on the concept that history itself is not a set of fixed objective facts, but like the literature with which it interacts, a text which needs to be interpreted. That a text, whether literary or historical, is a discourse which, although it may seem to presently or reflect an external reality, in fact consists of what one calls representatives, that is, verbal formations which are cultural constructs serving mainly to reproduce, confirm and propagate power structures. This is the attitude to be taken to understand the historical events of the Mughal period in Indian history in Avarana. Secondly, the reader response critics of all theoretical persuasions agree that, at least to some considerable degree, the meanings of a text are the production and creation of the individual reader. Hence, there is no one correct meaning for all readers. The following is thus the response to Avarana of a reader of English fiction and literature in general. The Western literary context for the study of Avarana is the fiction of Virginia Woolf, Beckett, James Joyce, Romeo Roland's Jean-Christophe, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, Henry James, Marcel Proust, Ernest Hemingway, William Faulkner, and above all, John Dos Passos. It must be remembered that Professor Bhyrappa has used in the earlier novels the types of epistolary, dramatic, picaresque, and in Sartre and Bildungsroman in Grihbhanga, and the Nouveau Roman in Avarana. This is a form that is termed anti-novel by Alain Robbe-Grillet, the French critic. Indeed, Avarana is an example of a meta-fiction as social history. This form is called a collectivist novel. Indeed, Avarana is an excellent example of the collectivist novel. It is defined as fiction in which the emphasis is not upon the life story of a single individual, but rather upon the life of a social group, the individuals involved being significant merely as they illustrate the operations of power, force. However, it does not mean that Avarana does not have powerful and realistic characterization. Bhyrappa's Avarana is not a unidimensional thesis novel, but multidimensional with a plethora of fascinating characters, major, minor, and even minimal, each invested with a distinctive personality. While Aurangzeb, Professor Shastri, Hamdullah, Lakshmi, that is Razia, Amir can be considered major characters. Narasimha Gowda, Shesha Shastri, the Prince, Shamala, that is Tabasam, Diganta, Aruna, Nazir, Shivaji, Achama, Vishwanath Sarma, Udaipuri Mahal, Amir, Dilshad Khan, These are minor characters. There are characters galore, God's plenty here in fact. However, in Avarana, the collectivist novel, there is a kaleidoscopic technique in a narrative style incorporating documentation. There is a formidable list of 59 documents, citations, news articles, Lakshmi's letter, for example, to the editor, slogans refer to the play Ittige, snatches from journalistic reporting, all juxtaposed to define socio-political atmosphere of a given time in history, in this case the Mughal period, especially the reign of Emperor Aurangzeb. The novel deals with the devastating effects of imperialism over a long period. The uninvolved camera eye technique, popularized by Christopher Sherwood in his burlesque stories, is employed here. That is why Dr. Bhyrappa says, there is nothing of my own regarding the historical material in this novel. I have used every detail and movement to the extent to which it can be integrated into the literary form of the novel. Translation mind. There is also the technique of the novel within the novel. A straightforward chronicle type of historical novel, like Sir Walter Scott referred to Ivanhoe and Harker Midlothian, is straightforward. A third-person narrative where the omniscient author is simple. For example, the 4 different narratives of the same incidents in Faulkner's Sound and Fury. The first 3 are complex, the Benji, Quinton and Jason sections, whereas the 4th, omniscient author's narrative is simple indeed. Multiple perspectives, when looked at from a narrator's point of view, as Mick Schmiel in Melville's Moby Dick or Nick Carraway in Scott Fitzgerald in The Great Gatsby, is different. Avarana, as a documentary novel, naturally incorporates the making of a documentary film. It is not by accident that Amir and Lakshmi are involved in making a documentary about Humpty. If there is a novel within a novel, there is also a documentary within a documentary. The same kind of muffling of truth, which is the meaning of the novel Avarana, about documentary on Humpty, Mutatis Mutandis, is true about the suppression of historical truth about the history of the Mughal period, suppressio veri, and even an attempt to project a false picture, Vikshepa. The story of Avarana is not of particularly paramount importance, but what it signifies is. In the past, in the post-James Joycean scenic of the stream of consciousness, to look for a well-lit plot is like looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack. After Samuel Beckett and Wilson Harris, the story has to be extracted by the reader for himself. This is indeed a reader response theory with a vengeance. Another aspect of Avarana is that it is important as a collage technique of modern art, especially painting. Bhyrappa is a painter with words. The main framework is provided by Lakshmi's narrative, which is the novel, buttressed by the diary of her father, the books and his copious notes and marginalia. Thus there is room for plenty of documentation. This persona within the framework of the mood itself provides the author with a means to bring in quotations from various primary and secondary sources which are stunningly wide-ranging. The exhaustive and thorough research for any novel is the hallmark of Professor Bhyrappa. This novel, that way, is not an exception. The main theme of the novel, however, of Avarana, is religious conversion with all its complications, ramifications and consequences. Since the novel works on 2 levels, public and private, the conversions and the systematic destruction of temples. At the private level, it is the conversion of the narrator herself, Lakshmi, the daughter of Narasimha Gowda of Narsapura near Kunigal, who becomes Razia when she marries Amir, her classmate. Professor Shastri's daughter, Aruna, who is an Anglo-Indian, becomes Salma. At the public level, the conquest of Rajaputana, the surrender of the prince, his conversion, castration and circumcision, and made into a eunuch to be in charge of the harem, the capture of the young prince's wife Shamala, who is enslaved and renamed Tapasam, are illustrative of the private world. To me, Avarana is a unique novel, the kind of which, to my knowledge, has not appeared anywhere in India. There are plenty of historical novels in Kannada. Some of them are Master Venkatesh Iyengar, Sikavira Rajendra and Channabasava Nayaka, Tarasus, Kambari Akkuilu, Tribhubana, Pathagalu, Rupatanga, Shilpashri, Failure Shantala, Veerkesri Sitaram Shastri, Daulats, etc. But Avarana is different from all these. We started by saying that Avarana is a unique novel, wherein lies its uniqueness. One, it lies in the fact that it is the new type of novel which can be described by modern, contemporary, Western, critical concepts like magic realism, stream of consciousness, anti-novel, self-restrictive novel. Now recollect Vladimir Nabokov's collectivist novel of John Tolstoy's. The uniqueness also consists, secondly, of its spiritual, philosophical dimension, as Avarana is a Vedantic concept to which the author has drawn our attention in his introduction to the novel. The documented as it is, included Western scholars like James Todd, John F. Richards, Samuel P. Huntington, Stanley Lane Poole, William Irwin, Sir William Muir, etc. It is much more than a mere documentary novel. Finally, its uniqueness lies in the fact that Lakshmi, the protagonist, is both intensely introspective, delving deep into her own soul, engaging in interior monologues and beyond soliloquizing, but an extremely dynamic activist, a woman of action. To conclude, Avarana illustrates what T.S. Eliot has called the achievement of the objective correlative. It is defined as a way of expressing emotion in the form of art, a set of objects, a situation, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that particular emotion, such that when the external facts which must disseminate in secondary experiences have been given, the emotion is immediately evoked. It is a very important critical concept by T.S. Eliot, the objective correlative. Avarana is a perfect example of this art. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ramaswamy, for giving us a perspective from the arts angle. It's not too often that we look at a novel from this